All right, well, ladies and gentlemen out there listening, today we have Chad and Ped from Frontier Gentlemen. Welcome to the Heavy Metal History Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to do this, guys.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. So the question I like to start with everybody on here is I like to know your guys' personal heavy metal history, so that like bands and records that meant something to you that kind of got you into the genre, and even if you have some non-metal influences in there, that's totally great too because I love hearing that as well. I know a lot of metal guys don't always just listen to purely metal, so I enjoy hearing those influences as well. So. Pedram, since you came in late, I'll let you start us off, man.
Oh man. Uh, Again, apologies for that. Time zones.
No, it's okay. I'll cut that out.
For me, it started with System of a Down. That was the first like heavy concert I went to, and they were and still are one of my favorite bands of all time. It started there. First concert before that was a Diana Ross concert that I got dragged
Oh
to,
shit.
and I had no bearing on music. I was just listening to like compilation CDs. Now that's what I call music, and it led me on to like Wheatus, Teenage Dirtbag, Nickelback, eventually System of a Down. Downloaded all these albums that people who were kind of going about at school with like Slipknot, Offspring, and Corn hoodies, and I was like, "What's this all about?" So then I just kind of binge listened to bands of that era, like Limp Bizkit. Not really so much Deftones and stuff. Like later on, I got into like Deftones. Love like Alien Ant Farm, like Anthology and Truant are both amazing albums. And then over time, I just started to get like into more heavier like music. I think it was sort of don't know what it would be in American like schooling, but third year here in Scotland, which is kind of like middle school or no high school, like
Okay.
middle of high school. Uh, the bassist in our old bassist Callum, who's now our merch guy and sort of our tour driver, he got me into Meshuggah. That was the first time I heard Chaos Sphere, which
Yeah.
when I think about it is actually quite crazy because that was nearly 20 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chaos Sphere and then Lamb of God. Like I remember when I listened to As the Palaces Burn, that record just frightened me. Like the sound of it, I was like, this sounds really like nasty. So I guess that's like a little bit on the chronology of it,
Mm.
and times as time's gone on, I've picked up more influences and more bands and artists. But let me know if you have any questions on that. I'm happy to expand further, or you can ask Chad where he started.
I wanted to relate for a second with that Lamb of God album because that was like one of my gateway albums too. And there's something about the way that album is recorded, the rawness of it, but it's still like weirdly heavy. And every time I try to like explain it to people, it's like I don't know the proper like terminology for it, but for the time that that record came out, man, like there was something really special about that record, and I still think it's like one of their best records. I know people tend to disagree with that, but that was I agree, man. That's like a crazy album to get into at like that age, like 14, 15, 16 years old, and just the guitar tones and the drumming and Randy's shrieks on that record are just so good. I love that record. So
Yes,
Chad, oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna add and say like it does sound like bubbling lava, like the production on that
Yeah.
record as a Palaces Burn. There's something that sounds very like wet about it. I think it's Randy's voice. It's Sacrament as well. Like
Uh-huh.
I never really got into them after Sacrament, but like Sacrament and As a Palaces Burn are two impeccable records. And Sacrament, the production on that was just unbelievable. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chad. I'm stealing the thunder from you.
No, you're good. I was gonna say their last album that they just put out actually felt like a return to form to like As a Palaces Burn era. I was very impressed with it because a few before that didn't really catch my attention for one reason or another. But yeah, I enjoyed that last album they put out. But Chad, let's hear your heavy metal history now.
Sitting there thinking as you guys are talking. I mean, I think it was years and years ago. I was really young and I got really into like death metal really early. I don't even know
Mhm.
why. There was bands probably before that, but they're not really hitting. But then I was like there was enough death metal that you really couldn't buy it because back in the day it was just brutal covers. I'd go to like a Camelot Music and be with my parents and show them stuff and not really realizing that what I was really showing them. So then I had to go, okay, what can I do? So I started looking into like the Christian death metal scene, which I had some really cool bands, but Mortification back in the day, I mean, when they were really heavy, like they're
Yeah.
self-titled and Scrolls of the Megaloth, and I think it was Post Momentary Affliction, I believe, were like those albums. And like even today, like it's not even the same band, but those albums are super awesome. So that kind of just propelled me into other bands that were doing stuff like that. But then I fell into stuff like Pantera and then Slayer, of course, prior to that, Megadeth, the typical Metallica, all that. And that just opened up more doorways to other bands since the metal genres like to split into like crazy root systems.
Yeah.
But then that goes into like, when I'm into, I don't know, I guess probably junior high to high school, you find Corn. I found
Mhm.
Corn the year it came out in '94. At least the self-titled. Then you find Limp Bizkit. Then you obviously find the Deftones in '95, and so that just kept branching and branching over into newer or heavier. And then I guess to get into projects when I started doing music, I was even telling Ped this the other day, like Blindside. I'm a huge Blindside fan, and
Oh, I remember them. Yeah.
yeah, it just Christian's just amazing voice. But the early stuff was kind of new metal, and then they did their
Yeah.
second album, which was called "A Thought Crushed My Mind," and it was like more hardcore based, all screamy, and that's kind of the shift. That's how I remember it. That was the shift into like where I was like, I really want to do this, like music. And
Hmm.
I remember, I think that may have been like '96, maybe when that album came out. I'm trying to think. I was not out of high school yet, but I just started doing music really, I think my second year, I was 20. So I was like
Okay.
probably 19, 18, 19 thinking about it, but then 20 when I started. But yeah, that was the album that transitioned me into like heavier stuff just because it was, I guess if you kind of think about it, it was kind of like what the Refused were doing in a way, but still different. All that screamy stuff. And then that branched into like Coalesce and Botch
Mm.
and Will Haven, especially. That was what really triggered even harder. So that was, I mean, there's so many more bands, but it just kept going from there and it kept going through the root systems. And now there's just, the metal world is just crazy now. You could find anything doing something different. I mean, or anyone doing something different.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah.
funny with the genre stuff that how people want to like just make up new names for stuff when, maybe I'm just older now. It's like it's just all metal, man. Like I don't need to
Yeah.
call it
Too
like
many
now,
subgenres.
yeah, like
You
now
know,
there's this thing going around called MySpace deathcore. I don't really know what that means, but I guess it invokes a certain sound from like the MySpace days of deathcore, and to me, it's just like it's all still just deathcore or metal or whatever. I don't know, but
I've
it's
seen that
like
resurgence online. People talking about
yeah,
whether the bands are coming back. I think some maybe, but I see
some
that
are,
on some.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's how they word it. It's MySpace deathcore stuff. But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I remember
It's
those
like all
days.
right.
So yeah.
So Ped, when Chad was kind of talking about like when he got a record that kind of made him want to start doing music. When did you kind of start wanting to play guitar and writing all your songs and everything like that?
I think I started writing guitar because I needed a thing to identify with for me. Like it wasn't because I don't know if it was fully because I liked music. I think
Mm,
part of it was because I tried all these things at school, various sports and things, and nothing was really like my thing that I was into. I played violin for a while before I played guitar,
nice.
for like 2, 3 months, and I hated it. And my parents were like, my mom specifically was like encouraging me to like try and do like to pick something up. So yeah, I mean, with the guitar, once I started listening to, I mean, I listened to like Blink 182, like all sorts. It wasn't just like heavy music, it was
Hmm.
like Blink and all that sort of shit. I was like, you know what? It would be really fun if I could play this. Like it would be quite fun. I started to sort of see a practical application of music that I was enjoying because I got a lot of energy out of it, right? Like just listening to records. I don't know, music, as it probably is for everybody, for me, it felt really immersive. Like when I really picked the songs that I loved, I would listen to them back so much. And this is like when I was younger, I would listen to them and I'd imagine me playing those songs live. And that sounds
Mhm.
weird. But that's how much I was into the songs, you know? And I was like, fuck this air guitar. Like, I need to learn the real thing, man. Like, I need to do it. So from there, I was like, well, I'm listening to all these albums that I have downloaded off Kazaa and LimeWire and seen all
Yeah.
these. I was like, I've got all these records. I really like them. And I should revisit the musical instrument thing again because violin didn't work out. And there's nothing like I wasn't really into classical or anything at that point. I listened to it passively. I wasn't like an avid classical listener. I was just like, this has practical application for me. So I picked up I picked up an acoustic, like a classical nylon string, and
Mhm.
started just trying to learn what tab was, trying to figure out like am I don't know, I didn't have anyone to comment on like the technique that I had for my, fretting or anything for a while. Like I got some formal lessons, but that didn't last very long. I just kind of like doing my own thing. I felt like if it was turned into curriculum, it just got boring really quickly. So I sacked the lessons and just started teaching myself. Does that answer your part of your question so far? I can keep going into
Yeah, no,
detail.
I love this, man. This is great. Yeah, because I know that feeling of when I was trying to learn guitar, I did the same thing. I did not like the lessons, and then I just tried teaching myself, and never got any better. But it was still easier for me. But I feel like I hear that a lot with a lot of guitar players, man. Except for those really like disciplined ones. It's like, yeah, I did some lessons, but then like I found it more fun to listen to the songs and learn them that way and like figure out the tabs. It's like that own sense of self-discovery of like what makes you want to play guitar, not just what some dude is trying to teach you, some Bob Dylan song, excuse me, some Bob Dylan song or something like that. So yeah, I get that part of guitar playing, man. It's especially for something that you want to take seriously, like getting into it is isn't something that you connect with on it. Otherwise, you're going to go the way of the violin. You're not going to want
Yeah.
to play that thing.
I mean, a lot of it also influenced, like that process influenced, like how I make sounds and stuff now. Like it definitely had a direct influence. So I've listened to like, I don't know, like Volume 3 by Slipknot came out just as I was starting to get like even more into music. And earlier Slipknot was there. Like I watched the video for Spit Out and stuff. It was fucking great, like
Yeah.
creepy as shit. But when Volume 3 came out and they started to really go like more mainstream, I was like, how are they doing? Like, how are they doing like the wah wah sound at like points and like Vermilion? Like, how are they doing that? So like, I was sitting with my guitar and like discovered harmonics, and all this other whole other world because there's like learning the guitar, learning the instrument as a standalone, and then there's augmenting that with like effects and doing things, processing that guitar into something else. So that started to get me into like all the weird noises and stuff that I do now in this band. So yeah, big influence. It's funny because actually talking about it out loud makes me realize things that I didn't actually think of until I told you. So that's fun.
I love that. Yeah, that's like the best part about doing this, man, is like finding
Yeah,
finding out stuff like that while we're having these conversations.
for sure.
Um, Chad, I was wondering, with a lot of vocalists, it's kind of trial by fire a lot of times when learning how to scream. So what was your kind of like introduction and like thinking like, oh, I think I can scream like that, like I want to be in bands doing this, and getting your vocals where you wanted them to be.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. That took time. I didn't know I could do it. I think like when I was mentioning it earlier, like I just knew I wanted to do it. I really wanted
Mhm.
to emulate what I was hearing, and I had a passion for it, ironically, without even ever trying it. And it was brutal at first, because I did it stupidly. I mean, I was 20. I didn't, I wasn't warming up. I wasn't, which in turn, I mean, over time of the early days, it ruined my throat. I mean, I had shows. This is like one of my first bands, and I guess it was my first band, and my throat would bleed. It would hemorrhage in a way, like my vocal cords, like I would spit, and it wouldn't be like blood, but it'd be pink. You know what I mean? So yeah, you do things wrong, you're gonna end up with a mess. But the cool thing is, it provided a raspiness to my voice now, because obviously now I warm up and do what I need to do and push right. And, did like the Melissa Cross, she's, like the queen of metal vocalists.
Yeah.
If you've ever, yeah, if you've ever checked her out or haven't, she's key, and she saves voices. And so doing those techniques and stuff really helped. And I found that later on, I probably found that, I don't know, it's probably been 12 years now, maybe, you know what I mean? So even before that, I was just trying to be better at it and just read what I could as the internet was blossoming itself into giving you more information. There wasn't a lot of people to talk to, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew people in bands, but it was like, I guess you kind of feel like it's your own problem. So anyway, I just, over time kind of created the sound based off a lot of projects of bands that I liked, you know what I mean? And I wasn't trying to be any of them, but um, the raspiness kind of came out, and I guess I kind of found a way to harness it. The writing process was always easy, even from the early days. I don't understand that. I don't.
Hmm.
I'm a huge avid reader. I read all the time, so I would write as well. So I don't know. I mean, obviously that kind of comes into play with telling a story or creating a story and writing it down. But vocally, I guess I just got lucky. I didn't quit early on, and when it got, in the turning point of it getting better or getting easier for me. But yeah, that's kind of how it is, man. I think, like I said, I was just lucky that I didn't truly kill it by
Yeah.
doing it
Yeah.
improperly. But yeah, now, I mean, even after shows now, like pet notes, they're always like, if they hear that I'm raspy, like, shut up, don't speak. You drink your tea. You know what I mean? Like, they take care of me, so it's good.
Trying to
Have you
conserve
seen
voice.
any of these videos of this woman, the charismatic voice, and then like Cardvox, who have been like dissecting how vocals work with metal musicians now? Like it's kind of crazy the stuff that they've found out with that.
Is that the same one that did that? Was it Will Ramos that broke
Yeah.
that down? I've
Yeah.
only seen that video. I
Okay.
don't think I've ever checked any of the other ones. I should, but yeah, that would be interesting to see. I mean, that's a crazy video in its own right.
Yeah, I appreciate them actually showing like scientifically like hey, this is why metal vocalists are actually as good as any Freddie Mercury or, whoever out there. Like they have just as much talent, even though they're screaming it. It takes just as much to do it. And I was like, damn, thank you, somebody.
Yeah, somebody said it finally. It's not just noise.
No. You mentioned you read a lot. What are some of your favorite like authors and books, man? I'm a big, huge reader myself. I wish you could see like my bookshelves and
Yeah,
shit.
that's how mine at home. It's like I got enough bookshelves, and then half of them are in tubs because I don't have enough space.
Yeah.
Stephen King is obviously that's like a
Mm.
typical for a lot of people, but I read, so I like Brent Weeks, who does a lot of fantasy and stuff. But I like sci-fi more than anything.
Yeah.
Anything that really, and I don't really hang off a lot of authors for that. You could go as early as Ray Bradbury, all the way up to, to many different people. Like, so, but Stephen King is always the one that I mean, he's got so many different books and novellas and short stories. I'm always constantly going back and forth. I'm a huge Dune fan. I love,
Oh, nice.
anything that is Dune based, whether it was, the dad writing it versus the son writing it. I don't care, so I will always go back to that. But yeah, I mean, it didn't get my hands on, but I kind of stick in those type of like genres of that type of writing. I don't do really the murder mysteries, even though they're probably fun to read.
Yeah.
I kind of draw more, I guess, influence from the sci-fi stuff when you kind of see in the lyrical form, and even fantasy. I wouldn't say I listen or read fantasy novels. I'm not really into that, but that realm that splits kind of between sci-fi and fantasy or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of what I stick to when I read. I don't really do like,
Yeah.
uh, self-help books are cool, but I mean,
Yeah. No.
come on now.
Yeah, I'm
I don't want to
kind of in
read
the same
that.
boat. I like a lot of
Yeah.
sci-fi and like I don't know what you would call it. I guess like true to life stuff, like Bukowski and Irvine Welsh. A lot of that kind of I don't know what fiction like what kind of fiction that is, but uh
Yeah.
have you seen The Monkey yet, by the way?
No, I've not seen. I've read the short story,
Okay.
but I have not seen that yet. I mean, there's always mixed reviews on a Stephen
Yeah.
King movie. I think actually he liked it. I want to say that I saw like a post or something or a tweet that he was at the theater watching it somewhere, which is pretty cool. But
I I will say this. This is the first movie in a long time, besides like some of the I'm blanking on that dude's name that does like everything Stephen King lately. But it's the first time in a while where I felt like somebody really captured that sardonic wit of Stephen King, and I think people didn't realize that going into this movie, and so I think that's where the mixed reviews are because it is kind of a horror comedy or a dark comedy, and he did such a good job of capturing that even from such a short story. And I was very impressed by that because I was like, oh
That's
my God,
awesome.
like this is so well done. So
So
I
now I need to
gotta,
see it for sure. Now I need to push it up the list. I was
yeah,
kind of hesitant, not just, and I mean, it's like one of those things. It's like, I guess we were talking earlier. That's, it's like getting out to see a concert's hard. It's like going to the
yep.
movies is just as hard. So yeah, I think, once it hits streaming for sure. That's awesome.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here to talk about the EP. But I do want to come back to some origin stuff here in a minute. But since we're kind of talking about your writing and everything, uh, I kind of want to know more about like the theme of this EP because I really love the way the title of it is all the song tracks and everything. So, what was kind of like your idea with like the lyrical themes of this EP?
Man, that's a good question too. Pet and I, we've been doing a lot more back and forth. Like we always discuss everything, but
Yeah.
I don't think it was, Pet, you may have to back me up on that. I think you and I both kind of thought of that. I usually will name the tracks almost everything. Ped sometimes will come up with a really cool one that we stick with too. And I came up with the skull burned first. I try to get with like a lyric that pops in my head. And when I write, I don't write from front to back. I write with what grabs me first. It could be it's a hook. It could be anything. It could sit anywhere in the song. And I don't remember, but that I do remember when it popped in my head, but I don't know what caused it. But the skull
Hmm.
burn, I think, was first. And because I mean, the EP started out as really two songs. We didn't know what we wanted to do with it. We were just trying to make some new music to get it out there.
Yeah.
And then it went to three. And then the last minute it went into four. So Ted and I were like, we can do four song EPs. We can do whatever we want, you know?
Yeah.
And so then as we were naming it, I think we had the phrase, yeah, well, the phrase was kind of growing. And then we were like, well, we got one more song. We got to figure out how we're going to name it. And then it just kind of stuck with like, cool, we'll just name it that. And we'll keep the song titles this. It wasn't, I don't even think we got influenced by anything else because other bands have done that. But
Hmm.
Cherry kind of does it within their tracks, but I don't know if anyone's ever. I don't know if they've done it from the title in, but it it was cool. I mean, that's the lyrical themes just kind of come to me. Each song kind of works together. It's like someone that's losing their identity and not really going to hell, but in a sense, and then coming back out, wearing a mask, something that is different, and seeing things differently. But I write hidden. I don't like to be, it's like I want everyone to get their own little take on it. So
Right.
if someone reads it, they want this because people will ask me, and I'm like, well, what does it mean to you? Like if I tell you what it means to me, you're probably gonna be like, well, that's stupid, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how that came about. It was just Ped and I throwing ideas back and forth, and we were like, well, we're not done that yet, so let's just do that. It literally is that easy. It's fun. Um, so that's how it
Yeah.
started.
I like that that just even looking at it on like streaming or online, it's just like, oh, that's cool. Like how it just all it's almost cyclical too. If you look at like the title and just the way it kind of goes down and everything. Um, it's a really clever way to do it, I think. That's just my
Thank you.
opinion.
I appreciate. I like that opinion. That's good.
I want to go back kind of to the beginning, I guess, because Ped, I'll let you speak on this. From what I understand, when you guys started, this was meant to be just a studio project, no touring, no nothing like that. But then eventually, it kind of grew into a touring recording thing. Uh, Kind of take me back to those early days and like how you two linked up and where it went from there, man. Here we are now.
Yeah, we started through MySpace. MySpace is a death for.
That's
uh,
right.
yeah, Chad was like doing some A&R stuff for Basic Records at the time, and I don't know if it was entirely through that, but he found a MySpace page for my other band sectioned at the time. It was more active in the sense that we had local local members, and we were trying to like write some stuff. But Chad just approached and was like, want to do some vocals for this project.
Hmm.
And I was just like, how's that going to work? You don't live near here, so no. But my closed mindedness left an opportunity to collaborate on other music that wasn't this band that I was trying to do more stuff with and be more active with. And so it was like, why don't we just write a track? Like, why don't we just do a song? And so we did this song called Dissolver, which is on YouTube. It's not under Frontier. It's just there. It's just me and Chad.
Hmm.
And from there, it was like we enjoyed the process. That I was like, well, I kind of like writing this music because it's heavy, like my other band's like section, but I get to write everything, and like I basically get my own way instrumentally, which I couldn't really get in the other band because I didn't know how to write. Like I was learning guitar profiles sent by Mitchell, who is or was the bassist of Section at the time, who's now our designer. He does all this design work for Frontier. But
Nice.
Mitchell would write like insane Guitar Pro like songs, like full songs. Like it was crazy because we were only like 15, 16 at the time. And but he was just so proficient. And I was like, man, I need to learn how to do this so I don't depend on this for me progressing the project. And so this opportunity with Chad was the good opportunity for me to be like, cool, I can write everything, and I need to learn how to write everything. I need to learn how to record it. I need to learn how to produce it. And so the curiosity about learning, as with the guitar in the first place, as I was saying earlier, resulted in us coming together. And then you know when the first album dropped, which is 10 years ago this year,
Hmm.
uh, then just stuff snowballed, like it was just snowballing. It was early days, like early days algorithms before like you got, tanked with ads and stuff. There was like a really good momentum about social media in the sense that you could grow organically much easier, I think, than you
Yeah,
can now,
I agree.
unless you have a gimmick or something that you're really trying to push in one area. And we just rode that wave, and that's what kicked things off. So we're now here. We've done tours in Australia and Europe. We've been around the UK. We'd love to come to America. We're figuring out as we go along. Like we have a bit of a plan and a bit of, like, and just like goals and things we want to achieve, like objectives, but you have to leave some room for things that come your way that you don't expect. If they happen, if you're fortunate enough to get them, and that's just kind of what we've been doing. So working around that. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do everything yourselves, right? As far as like booking tours and all that kind of stuff as well, right?
No, no, no.
Not
So
now? Okay.
we did initially. We still do a lot. We
Hmm.
still do a lot, but booking side of things, we have a European booking agent, Martin,
Oh, cool.
uh,
Okay.
Avocado. So Martin does all of our EU and UK booking. And we have Greg at United Front Touring, who represents us in Australia. He's helping us
Nice.
out with New Zealand, hopefully down the line. We have a booking agent in Asia. In North America, I've been speaking a lot with Liam Frith, TKO now. He was at Dynamic. And Liam's a really nice guy. So we have people in different regions and territories, even though we've not maybe explored certain markets. But that side of things, the booking is now not handled by us. PR, we don't have a publicist. We don't do PR campaigns. We don't
Okay.
do any of that. Label, we don't have a label. We now have fulfillment through indie merch, and we'll hopefully have fulfillment in other territories as well. More on that soon for Europe, for example. And then the band is a team. Like we all do different things. We all bring different things in. Our bassist now was our sound engineer, Ian, and he has a lot of technical expertise, and he does that for that's his career.
Nice.
I'm a software engineer. I've done our website and everything. Luke, our drummer, is also a software engineer. down to college lecturer. You know, it's like everyone's got a thing. We just try to maximize that as much as possible. But when there's a need to bring somebody in new, then that's when we bring them in. We don't start, and we never started off being like, "Cool, we're a band now, so we need a label, we need a manager, we need this, we need that," and like that's not how we operate.
Yeah, and I feel like the landscape of things has kind of changed so much that the need for labels is kind of getting less, it seems like. Especially when you can self-record, self-release, what do you need a label for at that point besides like merchandising? And like I've heard some stories, man, that's like some labels, that's all they are now. They only care about getting merchandising rights from bands, and it's just like, what the fuck is the point of a label at that point? It's wild to me. But I'm sure
Yeah.
like all that work, man, is it's a lot.
Well, some labels like I don't know, some labels I think are getting ahead of the game and are modernizing quite well. I mean, we do our digital distribution
Mhm.
through Blood Blast, which is part of Nuclear Blast.
Okay.
So that's a really favorable position for us. Like they don't touch merch, they don't touch vinyl, etc. But on the digital side of things, they help with regards to like playlist pitching and all the sort of stuff in the digital realm. And the terms work out well for us. So that makes sense. And it made sense to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not like one model that like works. And I wouldn't say all labels are necessarily bad. It's just like what's your needs? Like what do you want? Like do you want a label because certain labels will go, different labels will give a different amount of effort with different
Yeah.
numbers of artists. It depends how many artists they've got. So like that's why you pick them. So the probably is a need for them in certain circumstances, but right now, like there's nothing that's come our way that we thought, okay, this would elevate us substantially to forfeit all this other stuff, like all this other like income or whatever that we can then decide what we want to do. And I'm not out to lose money and be in a debt pile to pay some
Yeah.
gigs.
Right.
Um, One thing I wanted to kind of touch on real quick with like touring and the possibility of coming to America, without getting into the politics of it all, with how everything's kind of going, how feasible is that going to be within the next few years because of like all these fucking tariffs and God knows what is going on? Like, is that going to affect you guys trying to come over here within, the next however many, whenever you guys decide to do that?
I mean, I can answer that one because I'm from the UK, like I'm from Scotland. I've born and lived here, but I
Mhm.
got dual nationality. I'm a dual Iranian citizen. So that already as a tourist provided complications. Like I had to get a visa to go to America, um, you know, to come over for holidays, even though I'm a UK citizen and I have family as well who don't have to have the visa to come because they don't have the dual citizenship or whatever. So it's a pain. I mean, that now is maybe, I mean, depending on policy changes, maybe going to be more of a barrier.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. We don't know until we try, but it's like every time we try and minimize the risk of an issue, something changes in current affairs that makes it more difficult. And like, if we're getting offers to come play in some territory that are really financially favorable, that work out well for us, then we're going to take that. And, that's just the way it is. I think that's why it's taken so long to come out to the States, really.
Yeah.
Uh, you it's at least from my perspective. And now, actually, since the last tour we did with Better Lovers in the UK, more opportunities are coming off of that, and you know, they're lucrative to the point where it's like, well, okay, even if we just do this as a one-off for a couple of gigs here or there, for us at this position, it's like that helps us put more funding back into the art to make this better so that we keep going as like a side thing while we keep going. We don't want to like burn out, and everybody's in different positions with dependents and families and
Yeah.
stuff, so it's got to work for everybody. What do you think, Chad?
No, that's nail on the head there, man. That's exactly it. The visas for you guys to come over, it's just man, it's a shot in the dark. They're already expensive, and that's the problem. I
Yeah.
mean, the expense alone for them. is one thing, but then no guarantee, and you do have to take that risk, I think, but we have to be at a point where that risk is not going to devastate, you know, us financially. If that, I mean, not to say that that's gonna we have to wait that long, but you know what I'm saying. Just the timing needs to be right. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just it is what it is. It'll happen. It's
Yeah.
just and like Pet said, I mean, if other things come up that financially makes more sense, I know that it kills people because we'll post, it's we're working on it, and then they see us another year do another UK tour or do somewhere else. We are not avoiding it. So that's a note for everybody. We're trying. It's gotta even offers we may have potentially like been thrown. It just has to make sense, and if it doesn't make sense financially, we're at a point in our lives where we're just older. We're not kids, and
Yeah.
we treat it as a true business. Like it's spreadsheeted out, man. It's like down to the penny. You in the red, you in the green. And so if we're in the red, we got to say we all have to agree to it. Like this is going to happen. Are we all okay with it? And it's a beautiful thing, man. It's like we're in sole control of everything, and to grow like we've grown organically, like we were talking about, and with just a little bit of help here and there, it's a really fun ride that we're not burning ourselves out because we're just in control. If something comes up and it's better for us, if it's a label, whatever it is, we'll discuss it and then we'll pull the trigger if we can make it work. But it's yeah, there's a lot of barriers, man. It's crazy. So that's why we're always other places and not in the US. That's why I'm always
Yeah.
leaving.
Yeah, I guess
A
it's
lot
easier for
of
you to get over there, right?
It's 100%. I mean, I enjoy it
Yeah.
more just because I love Europe, man. I love
Yeah.
anything that's not home, which is not to say that it's bad here. You know that, but
Sure.
it's just that it's different. Stranger in a
Yeah.
strange land, and these guys know those places like that's the countries to them are states to us. It's just like so. I learned from them. It's been great. So, but the U.S. is coming.
Yeah.
I think our fans as well though, like I like to think most of them, the ones I engage with, are pretty well informed about like the costs of doing it and stuff. And a lot of people will take a label debt to go out and do like a US tour. But the reality is that for a band of five to come over to the States, without your crew and stuff like that, if you have crew, before you've even played a show, upfront cost is starting at over $10,000 before any guarantees, like the flights and the visas. If you get your visa on time, you're going to have to put up minimum five-figure sums to come over. And reality is there aren't a lot of other territories where, because of the whole visa situation, that is as much of an issue, or agents are willing to part with money on things like flights. And
Yeah.
maybe it's like a level thing. Maybe we're just at not like a level of demand or whatever where we're privy to offers like that. But we've been taken care of everywhere else to the point where we're able to do that. So it would be nice if we got something that just made it quite easily break even. Um, to make it worthwhile. Like these opportunities are worth it because they're life altering memories. Every single tour is just something that you remember like for the rest of your days. And American fans are our biggest fans. Like all the stats are there, so we have to do it, but just need people to maintain their patience and enjoy the music in the meantime.
I mean, I think people are doing that, because it's been 3 years since the last full length came out, and it seems like I see constant posts about the albums or albums you guys have put out, in that time, and then the EP hit, and people were like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Like here we go. Like so, um, I guess take me back to when you kind of started writing the EP. Was it pretty much like as soon as the album was done? Like, how's your writing process go with something like that?
You want me to answer this one?
Yeah, yeah. I know what you were. I mean, it would be right after the Converge tour is how it would probably started. So I want to see what you say because I think
Yeah,
we started before that, actually. To be honest.
yeah. So like I had a record basically before we went on a run with tour with Converge in 2023 around Europe.
Okay.
And then I came back from that tour and I wrote a record in like a week. Like the structure of it was there in like a couple of weeks. I went on a holiday. I went to Florida for 2 weeks, and I listened to it like constantly. I had loads of ideas to change bits and bobs, and like I'm still here to this day. That was over 2 years ago. Like I'm changing up parts, I'm changing bits here or there. Like we've got an album, another album on top of that that Chad's currently tracking vocals for.
Shit.
And like the messages, like I write all the time, and then I change stuff quite a lot because it's like I'm focused on getting like an adrenaline rush from my own music, and if I flatline and I like on reflection, I'm like, oh, nah, I felt that at that moment, but I don't really feel that now. I go back and I change it.
Mm.
So I've been changing stuff constantly. And the EP, really, from an instrumental standpoint, the EP was 4 songs that didn't really make sense or make the final cut on what we were doing with the album.
Okay.
But there were ideas there in unifying that to create this EP. And we thought, well, why not? We haven't released anything in a while. These are cool songs. And Chad worked on them as well. And basically, like the theme for it, the title, everything built up around the song selection. But it wasn't even like it was 4 full songs at that point. Again, we had 2 tracks. I decided to add another. Just decided to add like a fourth one. Part of that comes back from the whole point of like, well, you know, what's like value as well for people who like listening to this band, and what's our vision. And probably, to be honest, me being like, oh, let's just put up one more song in there, we'll fit it on this 7-inch LP. Fuck it, it's only going to be 2 minutes long, let's just do 4, let's just do. So I don't know if I'll ever break away from that. I feel like I'll always want to make like alterations right up to the last minute when I can, but it's what we say at work. It's like perfection is the enemy of progress, right? And that
Yeah.
sounds like some corporate shit, maybe, but it's true. Like I think it is, to an extent, but sometimes a little bit of perfectionism can pay off big in the long run.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the instrumental, like part of the instrumental process. For I don't know if it's different for you lyrically. You're usually cutting the grass when you're doing your lyrical.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, it's one of the same. It's I don't really write stuff prior to Ped giving me something. I have a lot of ideas for like cool phrasing, that come to my head, but really I let the music pull out what is in my head or what inspiration I can get. Because like in the EP was the same way. Ped writes when he's inspired, and so if
Mhm.
he's inspired, he's going to keep going. And him and I talk about stuff, and we'll have songs, and I'm like, oh, these are perfect, these are perfect. And he'll change a bit, and it'll change a spot that I'm like, just don't change this section, and it'll be that spot. We laugh back and forth, back and forth. But he's right that there's kind of a silver lining to trying to be too perfect because we know when to stop. But then we may just push a little more, and then we get something really cool out of it. So he's always like, trust me, which I do. But yeah, my process really is when I cut the grass, I have to be moving. I can't just like sit and I can sit and read, but I can't sit and come up with something. It's like the movement allows my brain to think.
Yeah.
And it's always when I cut the grass. It's funny. So when summer comes or spring, it's coming around that time, which is perfect because I'm still riding right now, or in the cars and other things. So if I'm driving, I mean, I write so much stuff. I can't even really carry a pen and a pad. I have to just do like voice notes because I'm not gonna wreck, trying to write something down. But
Yeah.
I have a really good memory for it's almost like a photographic memory with audio. So like when I hear something and create like a vocal like pattern or even a phrasing, and this could be stuff that I wrote back in 2006, and I can still, if I never did the vocals, I can tell you what I was saying almost to a T. I can find the phrasing. So it's kind of a gift, and it's also kind of a bit of a curse too, because if I get stuck on something and we change it, then my brain doesn't want to hear something new.
Oh shit.
So there's a lot of struggles, but it's fun. I mean, this process is like, it's definitely never going to be perfect. We created like our own perfect process, and it gets better every time. What we're doing now, which I won't really give anything away, it's just us like really going back and forth more. But we've got some ideas that are really working cool now for making our stuff just a little bit more engaging for just the listener and even us. But it's like this band's a hard thing not to become become stale and not to become samey. You know, every band's going to have their own sound, which is going to be
Yeah.
considered samey. And the moment I hear that, I'm like, listen to every death metal band. And they're samey. You know what I mean? Like, pull a Cannibal Corpse album. You're going to tell me that that's not like everyone's going to say that next album's awesome. It's like, well, yeah, it's the same. It's like not the same. And
Yeah.
unless you really write music, it sounds like noise. But to us, we're trying to say, okay, how are we going to push the envelope and get heavier when we're already pretty damn heavy? And we come up with it, whether it's breathable parts or new ideas and vocals and melodies. And so there's some cool stuff that we're really working on that we've got some ideas for. But a lot of it is just like spur of the moment. It just like sparks something, and he's like, "Oh, try this," or back and forth. Ted's got a good idea for just things on the spot that kind of come up, and I work well under pressure. I'm like, if you set me down, I don't have it written yet. I can write it and record it in one session, and it come out pretty awesome for me. You know what I mean? Personally, I'm happy
Yeah.
with it. I might make some changes, but so yeah, that's kind of the processing, man. It's such a weird thing. No, there is no book for it. I don't think for anyone.
Right.
Just go, sit down and go and see what happens.
So, Pet, after you've like kind of written everything, as far as like the other members in that play live, like, are they learning stuff at the same time? Like you're kind of like writing it. How do you share like all that with them?
We just learn it when there's an opportunity to play it live. So
Oh shit. Okay.
if we're taking songs from a new release or whatever release, then the learning material for that will come when we're preparing for like a tour. And we're trying to get better at doing it more in advance of a tour, but it's getting better every tour cycle, but it's usually quite late on. And it means me normally resurrecting from the archives the stem files, and to be honest, a lot of the time relearning my own stuff. Like
I can imagine.
I haven't really been one for getting the record exactly in a live scenario. There's certain sounds and effects and things like that that I want to be more faithful to the record in a live setting, but it's usually just recreation. Like sometimes you just can't recreate that, like lightning in the bottle moment that's on the record. That's why the record's a different experience, and that's why the live experience is different. So I have no problem. Like I'm totally comfortable with the idea of things just not being exactly like for like in both scenarios. And so when it comes to teaching everybody the parts or whatever, to be honest, like on that last tour, our bassist Ian, he had like a bunch of older learning material and stems, and he's seen us live tons, so we just trusted him to like learn it, and he just learned it on ear, like through ear, with his bass and stuff, and figured it out. So we're now at a point where people can make a best educated guess because they've seen what the writing process involves from the point of view of dissecting some songs, that you can kind of predict or know what's coming next or how a certain part is played in a new song because you learned the techniques from the other songs. And so Dan, for example, our other guitar player, he I send him videos, but like he'll
Okay.
he'll sit down and try and listen, especially with rhythms, right? Like you could try and learn a pattern by not actually playing the right part. You have to get the rhythm right, and you just apply it to a different location on the fretboard. On the writing process, though, I was going to say, even just like last week, I'll walk around like any point, like if I'm in the grocery store, the supermarket, as we call it in the UK, like if I get a rhythm idea, I don't know, tapping my trolley or something, I'll just take my phone out, hit the video bit, and I'll record it. I'll make sure nobody's looking at me in the aisle, and I'll just record that pattern. I'll come back to it when I get back home. I'm like, cool, that's the pattern. I need to go and like record that now, And if I don't, then
Nice.
unlike Chad, I will forget. So, there's things like that are involved in the writing process too. The writing process isn't just like sitting at the computer. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of other aspects as well.
I just wanted to check real quick. You only had about an hour, right? Am I keeping you? I don't want to.
You're okay, man. I'll keep going
Okay.
a bit. Yeah, I appreciate you checking though. So
Yeah. Um, okay. So as far as like writing and recording, because everybody lives in different places, do you, uh, Chad, I assume you record your stuff where you're at and send it. Is that kind of how the whole system works?
yeah, It's really just pretty simple. It's Ped sends the stems, and he sends, you usually send it. He'll send ideas, but a lot of times he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna send it when it's finished." Um, and I get pretty much the finished copy. There'll be changes here and there, and
Yeah.
then that's when I start writing. And I record at my house in my basement, send the stems back. He mixes them. Once they're like truly finished, like we're done, then it goes to mastering, and then that's it, and press it. But like it's the process is kind of even like the same when we do it live. Like I don't ever practice with them. I wish I did, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's a video. Like I take the video, I act like I'm in the room. Like our last tour, it was what Ped was a year and a half from the last shows that we had, almost a year and a half. That was the last time I played on stage with them. Was that last show. So I walk in and we I have not had practice with them, and our first song's a brand new one because I don't write the music for it to be like. I never think about like, okay, I can't do this live. I just think this would be really cool. And Ped's like, we'll do this more, and it's all like we don't like. I don't think about it live. That's why Ped said, like even if he's relearning a track and it becomes slightly different, it becomes different vocally too, because there's going to be parts I'm going to pull away, which allows the music to breathe and me to breathe, and then I can come back in. But we don't play to a click or nothing, so it's like it just
Oh
works,
yeah.
and that's why this project is so like it's that's why it never burns me out because of the way we do it. We don't do enough to burn us out, but there's a lot riding on it. It's crazy. It should not work the way it does at all. Like I shouldn't walk on the stage in my first practice be like you know, our sound check, but it works, and it's awesome. It usually takes that one show. There's not really mess ups. It's just like it's crazy. It's crazy. But that process it's the same. It's never changed. I don't think from day one, except the first time I did Dissolver, our first track, I was in the kitchen. My daughter's at 17 now. I think she was like, I don't know, do the math. I don't know. She's probably 4, and she was screaming while I was yelling. But now it's done. Obviously, a little more of a controlled space, or has been for a few years. But yeah, it's easy. And that's why it's so fun. Like we don't ever stop doing music. If we weren't doing albums, Pat would just make songs and send them to me, and I would just do vocals and send
Right.
them back, and it'd just be this process. So there's not like an end in sight. Even if we didn't tour, we just would still do this. That's how we look at it now until we don't want to anymore.
I guess it's good too having that cohesion where you can literally just like walk on stage and like, okay, we got to iron some little kinks out, but for the most part, like we all got this. Like it works, and
Yeah,
go do
it's
a
fun. I
tour.
mean, I get nervous and like internally nervous. I just tell my wife, I'm like, well, I'm ready, but I don't know. There's 3 new songs, not done them to a crowd yet. She's like, you'll be fine, and it is always fine, it really is. But it's just, yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. It's like none of this should ever have worked how it happened, and and people love it, and they seem to keep loving it, and that just keeps the fire going for us. Um, we'll be here as
Yeah,
long as they want it.
I think it's just
I
because
think
there's not a lot of bands that sound like you guys either. There's like a small little handful, and I think that's like the best part about it. It's like you got to support the ones who are doing it, um, and hoping that there's more that are going to come up eventually.
Hmm. Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's cool. It's really neat.
Uh, Ped, your Ibanez. How long have you had that thing, man?
I have several of them.
The orange one. I'm sorry.
So the orange one I bought off 7string.org on the forum, and I think it was like 17 years old when I bought it.
Jeez.
So yeah, when did I get that? I think it was around 20 or something. I mean, the guitar itself, including the time I've owned it, is probably 30 odd years. Like that guitar is pretty old, right? Like, so yeah, and it was orange when I got it. So they didn't make them like in an orange color. It wasn't like a stock color or anything like that. So somebody had repainted it. And that's why I was like, oh fuck, I need this. Like this model is perfect. And it's like a fixed bridge because I hate floating trims.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, I was just like, I need this guitar. So yeah, I bought it off a forum. It arrived. It was in good nick, and then I changed all the pickups out. And I record every single thing that's committed to a record with that guitar. So it never leaves my studio. It's just a recording only guitar, and it's probably the only guitar I have like an actual sentimental value to. I don't really have a lot of sentimental value to like items of musical equipment, but that one is probably the only one that I do, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant guitar, and I mean, I've not changed the strings on it in a while, but I'm tracking final takes with it. I'm tracking final takes on songs with it, but it's fine. I actually found that like the last time I restrung it, the sound did change as it would naturally with fresh strings, but like I think it was the one of the bits at the bridge end like changed the height of the string against the pickup. So
Oh
like
yeah.
my guitar tone was really weird and off compared to what I was used to. And so I was like, cool, this time I spent a lot of time fiddling about with the Allen key to get it in the right spot. I was like, this time I'm just not touching it until I feel like I've nothing to record for a while. So yeah, those strings have been there for at least a year now, which is pretty gross.
It's funny how much like one little thing like changing your strings will throw off just everything on there. And then like,
Yeah,
man, my string just broke on my seven like 2 days ago, and I was like, fuck, man, I don't want to change these things now because everything sounds good on it, but now I'm kind of forced to.
Ibanez as well as a company, like they've been amazing to work with. So my rep Tyler has been really like outstanding and helpful and been very, very supportive. Like, and for me as a player to have like an artist page with them and stuff like that is such a huge thing for me. And now Ian's on board as well. Like our bassist is with Ibanez, and
Nice.
they hooked him up with a nice bass before the tour, and it sounds amazing. Like bass sound for us has never sounded bigger, and genuinely is a large part of it is down to that bass. So stoked to keep working with them, and just yeah, love the fact that I am and can be affiliated with the name because it means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's what I have. I have an Ibanez, and then I recently just bought like a baritone, one of those like cheaper Harley Benton baritones, just to see what it sounded like.
Yeah,
It's fun to mess around with them. They sound so incredibly different, which is amazing to me. But I was surprised. I was like, it can't be that different. And sure enough, man, it's it's like a completely different instrument almost.
I'd love to try. Like I have like different ideas for customs that I would love if I could,
Ooh,
like an Ibanez custom. There would be at least two different ones, but one of them they did a six string quarter tone electric six string. So it would do like sorry, it would do like microtones, like microtones on a guitar. And I would love to have that as a seven. I think it would just be a lot of fun. So I don't know if they're watching this, that would be great. Tyler, if you're
I'll
watching
tag him.
this,
I'll post this as a clip. Like, give
it
him a
would be
custom.
sweet. Um, but yeah, anyway, that was just me going on a bit of a Ibanez tangent.
Yeah. Well, guys, I try to keep it like an hour. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But as far as this coming year, like what if you can talk about anything, what's in the works as far as like maybe a release or another tour? Is it just kind of a work year trying to finish everything up?
So possibly at least one festival, possibly two, in Europe, and no other shows for this year. It's weird because we did the tour in January. It feels like that was a year ago, but it was the start of the year, so it's like
Yeah.
done some shows. So no other shows this year, and then yeah, as you said, finishing up albums, putting things together for next year, and then we've got to do something to celebrate 10 years of our first record this year in October. So we'll do something for that as well.
Yeah, I would love, man, like if you have the time sometime, like because that's kind of part of my thing with the podcast is like the history of it and getting like how records were like fully made. I would love to like sit down and like hear just every little thing about that because it's a big milestone. 10 years, just in 10 more years it'd be 20, and then next thing you know 30, and it's gonna stand the test of time, man. I believe it. So congratulations. That's the thing I want to
Thank
say
you.
with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think it's nice though because again we haven't kind of planned it this way, but with the 10 year coming up, sort of in October, we sort of took the opportunity to be like, well, we have all this new music. This is like the first 10 years. What we have is easily in terms of the amount of songs the next 10 years. So it's like close one chapter, open another. So
Yeah.
that's what we're probably gonna do.
Nice. I guess one last thing, where can everybody listening or watching this follow you guys on social media? I don't know. I kind of got rid of most of mine, but I don't know what. I think you guys use Instagram, right? At the very
Mhm.
least, Facebook. I don't know.
We still have all of them pretty much.
All
The
Yeah.
the
main
Okay.
ones.
usual ones. Yeah, all the usual ones. We have merch at the moment on Indie Merch Store. We have a Frontier Collections page, and we also have a website which I'll let you find in Google. See if you can find it. It's our official page, frontierband.com. Okay, I caved. But yeah, more stuff, more stuff's going to be on there as well in the future because I'm managing that now. And it's nice to just have like an actual page rather than
Yeah.
sub pages of other bigger establishments.
Yeah. I used to have a website for the podcast, and I quit using it because I felt like nobody was, looking at it. And now I've been kind of thinking about just going back to the website because I felt like I got way more traffic on it than I do anywhere else, which is crazy to me. Um, yeah, that's I think being in control of that is really important for your own project and stuff. So yeah, social media is fucking weird now.
Yeah, it is
But
actually.
yeah, Chad, Ped, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Seriously, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Um,
Dustin.
Definitely looking forward to what comes out in the future. And if you haven't
Thank
listened to the EP, go do it right now. Come on.
We
you.
appreciate you, man. Appreciate your time. It's been
Yeah.
been great.